Okay, everybody, hi, and welcome back to program number 26 in Letters on Occult Meditation. And we have been talking about two dangers involved in pursuing meditation unwisely. The danger of inhibition, in which we lock the contents of our mental body to try to inhibit the appearance of various types of movements within that mental body, and the danger of atrophy, where we become so fixed in our mentality that we ignore the astral and the etheric physical vehicles, which are necessary in order to create the right kind of manifestation of the divine plan. Excuse me while I get adjusted here a little bit. So now we're moving on to the emotional body. And what he says here from this letter of July 25th, 1920, he tells us that the emotional body is at this time the most important of the vehicles, and this for several reasons. It is a complete unit, unlike the physical and mental bodies. So basically you see that here. I'm going to attempt to make that quite visible. There we go. All right, you see there are no dotted lines in the emotional body, but here there is a dotted line separating the 4 systemic ethers from the 3 dense physical subplanes, and here in the mental vehicle there is a dotted line which separates the areas of the concrete mind from the areas of the higher mind. So this is a complete unit, and it reflects the fact that our solar system is very strongly astrally polarized and has not yet achieved mental polarization. So it is a complete unit, unlike the physical and mental bodies. And here, let's just bring this to our attention. Okay. Right. There we go. It is the center of polarization for the majority of the human family. They react first from the emotional body. Oh, that's etheric body. Let's try this. It is the most difficult body to control, especially in this solar system, and is practically the very last body to be completely subjugated. That is interesting because even after subjugating the mental, there are still areas of subjugation in the emotional body, or to be subjugated. Okay, let's put it that way. To be subjugated. We're told that the very last fetter that a master throws off is that of irritation. All right. That's somewhat interesting. Okay. The reason for this is that the vibration of desire has dominated not only the human kingdom, but also the animal and vegetable. We certainly see it in the animals, that's for sure. The animal and vegetable kingdom in a lesser sense, so that the evolving inner man has to work against inclinations set up in these kingdoms, and from which he slowly emerged. And this is interesting. So this is our major target for subjugation, if we possibly can, and not easy. Okay, let's make that a little bigger so that it's a little more visible. I'm using the purple to indicate manifestation. I was using the rose color before, but it's not quite correct. Before the spirit can function through forms of the fifth spiritual kingdom, or function through forms of the fifth or spiritual kingdom, such as the causal body or egoic lotus, the desire vibration has to be eliminated. And I would say especially the desire for lower things, because desire is a great principle in our cosmos and certainly in our solar system. So we have to change its orientation, and selfish inclination transmuted into spiritual aspiration. So we might say from Mars to Neptune. Mars too can be fiery aspiration, but it is associated with the lower point in the solar plexus, and Neptune with the higher point, where we transfer the energy of the solar plexus towards the heart center. The emotional body forms practically a unit with the physical body, at least at this point in evolution. What we feel and respond to, and that about which we have emotion, we tend to act upon. The emotional body forms practically a unit with the physical body. For the average man functions almost entirely at the instigation of the emotional. His lowest vehicle automatically obeying the behests of the higher. Maybe here I can use the rose color to indicate that emotional response. It is also the body that connects most directly, as has been oftentimes said, with the intuitional levels, and one path of attainment lies that way. Let's see, Lords of Compassion may, in their training, use that method of connection. One path of attainment lies in that direction. Well, it's not particularly the monastic path that the masters of the wisdom follow. I guess they are all masters, the Lords of Compassion and the ones we normally call masters of the wisdom, but we can make the distinction. And Master Jesus and Master Serapis both are Lords of Compassion, and they travel on the fourth path too serious for the investiture with greater malice. In meditation, the emotional body should be controlled from the mental plane. We oftentimes say to someone, calm down and meditate. And when the polarization has been transferred into the mental body through forms of meditation and intensity of purpose and of will, then the emotional body becomes quiescent and receptive. Mental polarization per se occurs between the second initiation and the third initiation. Mental focus is a different matter. It's a lesser factor, and we can begin to have that mental focus at an earlier time in our development. But true mental polarization, as we're told when studying, interestingly, the sixth and every disciple will have to undergo those. The Christ enacted them for us long before he had achieved mastery over these temptations, but the enactment was there. And you kind of wonder how he was alone, how did it make its way into the New Testament? He must have recounted the story to his disciples later, I suppose. Otherwise, they would not know. Okay. Now, let's go on. The negative attitude in itself, if carried too far, opens the door to serious dangers. And we might say, when meditating without seed, these dangers can arise because the meditator becomes too passive. Serious dangers, which I will later enlarge upon when we take up the subject of obsessions, divine sometimes, but more oft the reverse. So, we don't want to open doors that best had been left closed and will be, if left open, extremely disturbing, or at least allow disturbing influences to enter and dangerous influences. A negative condition is not desired in either of the bodies, and it is just this very negativeness that beginners in meditation so often achieve and run into danger. Well, there are certainly many things to think about for the unwary beginner, full of confidence and the thought of rapid progress along spiritual lines. The aim should be to make the emotional ovoid positive to all that is lower and to its environment, and only receptive to the spirit via the causal. Okay, and he's using the adjective there as a noun, but we understand the causal vehicle is what he means. Okay. So we don't want to receive negative influences in the emotional body, and this, of course, involves quite a few influences from the sixth and seventh emotional subplanes, counting from above to below. And I suppose from and the master has his influence, that is a different thing. So how can we make this emotional ovoid positive? Basically, he is speaking quite a bit about the ovoid, isn't he? But the causal body itself, he tells us, can be ovoid in shape, spherical in shape, or elongated. Does that mean ovoid-like, or is it a different category? So let us trust that eventually we develop in our emotional body a receptivity to the soul and to the Buddhic level of the spiritual triad, and maybe even one day from the monadic level, as the numbers are the same. Numerical affinity is there. The number of the astral body is 2 and 6. The number of the monadic vehicle is 6 and 2, depending on how we're counting. Now, in this case, well, from both above and below, but beginning from below in this case. Or we could say otherwise, that the number of the emotional vehicle is 6 and 2, and if we count from above and at first, and then the number of the monadic vehicle is 2 and then 6, counting from below. So that means there is a numerical resonance, and that the monad will have its effect also upon that emotional vehicle. Usually it's the monad and its ray affecting the mental vehicle, the soul and its ray affecting the astral vehicle, and the personality and its ray affecting the etheric physical vehicle. So, emotional positivity to the negative influences and receptivity to the higher influences. This can only be brought about by the development of the faculty of conscious control, that control which, even in the moments of highest vibration and contact, is alert to watch and guard the lower vehicles. He gives us, the occult esoteric meaning of some of the old statements that are found in the Bible, our Judeo-Christian Bible, and explains them in a way that can be understood esoterically. Watch and pray, the great Lord said when last on earth, and he spoke in occult terms that have not as yet received due attention or interpretation. So be alert. What one might say in this way, be alert to intrusion. And, that in certain of the lodges, in the various reflected mystery groups, there is a watchfulness always to guard the lodge from tangible interlopers and also from those that are found on subtle levels, you know, the function of the Tyler in Masonry. In his book, The Spirit of Masonry, DK gave so much while still using initials to guard the names of certain processes and officers and so forth. But there's enough to know that the first three degrees of the Blue Lodge do reflect in a very minute manner that which transpires on Sirius. So one day all of that will be clear. I remember, you know, when I entered Masonry, which was 46 years ago now. It was an exciting time in Scorpio, and I read everything I could that Master DK had said about the process that I was going to undergo. And of course, you know, his understanding is deeply esoteric, and there's a certain embalming in Masonry where mysteries are preserved, but those who preserve them don't realize the depth of the mystery. Well, all of that is now being taken care of, more or less, as new modes of Masonry appear. Early in this century, they have appeared and bring in a very esoteric note, such as, for instance, ancient universal mysteries, that particular order. It's the one that I'm most aware of and the most esoteric. So, what is it that must be watched? Well, let's see here. The attitude of the emotional ovoid and its positive-negative control, the stability of the emotional matter and its conscious receptivity. We don't allow it to get out of hand, lest the possibility of receptivity is cut off, and its alignment with the mental and with the causal bodies. And maybe it's easier to align with the mental than with the causal per se. It is this alignment, if this alignment is imperfect, as it so frequently is, it causes inaccuracy in reception from the higher planes. Distortion of the truths set down via the ego, and a very dangerous transference of force to undesirable centers, you know, that whose activation should have been left behind. This lack of alignment is the cause of the frequent straying from sexual purity of many apparently spiritually inclined persons. They can touch the intuitional level somewhat. The ego can partially transmit power from on high, but as alignment is imperfect, the force from those higher levels is deflected. The wrong centers are overstimulated and disaster results, and I suppose especially sacral center in this case. So what is it that must be watched? That's, we want to have that attitude is here, and stability is another. I think I'm recalling one of the disciples, ISGL, and I think he had a spiritual life, it seems, full of crisis, and was offered opportunity by the Tibetan, which he did not take or fully utilize, and eventually resigned. And I think stability, IS, I think stability was his S in those letter names that the disciples had to point to their main qualities that they had to deal with, cultivate, express. Yeah. Okay, so what I'll do here is, since it's the emotional body, I will put in the rose color. So, do I react? Am I reactive to environing impacts in a way that demonstrates a lack of control and a negativity where there should be positivity, and a positivity where there should be maybe receptivity? And am I unstable? Because I can never receive with accuracy the impression of the soul and beyond if the versatile psychic nature is turbulent, and then the alignment. Or does the emotional body simply do things on its own without the necessary control from the mental vehicle, and even better, from the causal vehicle? So what does it feel like to have an emotional vehicle which is regulated by the lower mind, and which is controlled as well from the soul levels? Because there is, as I said, that connection between the soul and the emotional vehicle. Very definite connection. Monad mind, soul, astral body, personality, etheric, physical body. And that has relevance when studying the ray science. So I think we see that it's written 100 years ago, but we see what has to be accomplished, and what still in the lives of so many students is not yet accomplished. We cannot activate that which has been utilized in the past. It's a retrogression. Sometimes, I hear about people trying to take the DNA of animals that are long extinct, maybe the woolly mammoth, and maybe others still older, and the Jurassic Park idea that somehow the dinosaurs have been reawakened because of our fifth ray experimentation with DNA samples, if such exist. And I think, well, this is really tampering with the direction which evolution indicates, and is counter to the intent of the divine plan. I don't know how much of it can be done. Maybe in the case of the mammoth, where the DNA material is more current, maybe it could be done. Anyway, it's not desirable to reawaken centers which were activated in the past and which were transcended toward activation of the higher centers. You know, the good which should have been outlived is one of the definitions of evil. You know, going against the stream is, you know, backwards. And sometimes when you look at the negative types of occultism, people are taking, various significant words of power, mantras, and speaking them backwards. It tells a story. It means rolling back the divine plan, at least in the minds of some of these perverted types who seek to do that. So alignment turns out to be very important. Another danger to be guarded against is that of obsession. And, you know, maybe possession is a greater example of obsession. But in pure thoughts, spiritual aims, and unselfish brotherly conduct lie the fundamentals of protection. I think Master Moria told us that if the heart center is really open, it will ward off the danger of obsession. And basically, because he said it was, at the time he was writing, or, you know, speaking through Madame Rorik when he was doing so, an epidemic of obsession, he said. And you can imagine how that had a great effect in precipitating the Second World War. I don't know about the first. He doesn't speak of it so much that way. He speaks of it as one long war. But Master Moria makes it seem that the obsessing entities were drawing ever closer and taking over the thoughts of certain types of individuals who were not pure in their thoughts, who did not have spiritual aims, who were guilty of selfish and unbrotherly conduct. And, you know, eventually, at least some of those, he ended up naming Hitler and his evil gang, you know, a shambolic receptor of the negative kind. If to these essentials is added common sense in meditation and a wise application of occult rules with due consideration of ray and karma, and of course one has to be able to see into the past. Maybe the rays can be determined, but to see into the past the nature of the present karma dating from those earlier times, that is a special ability. With the due consideration of ray and karma, these dangers will disappear. So he warns us of obsession, matters having to do with attitude, with stability, with alignment, and regarding obsession. So let's put those four factors in: attitude, stability, alignment, obsession. Attitude, stability, alignment, obsession. And, you know, the born of, negativity, or should we say excessive negativity, which the meditator imagines is receptivity. But watch and pray. So watchfulness is key in the meditative process. What do I have? Wrathfulness, W-A-T-C-H, watchfulness is key in this meditative process. Now another, I don't know, maybe he'll get into the idea of prayer somewhere here. It looks like what we have is some thoughts on fire, and that seems to go on for quite a while. And he's continuing the dangers to the various systems within man. Well, he certainly wants us to be forearmed in this matter. Yeah. And so we will wisely attempt to follow his wise advice. So some thoughts on fire. Goes on for a few pages. Some people think that now that they are students of occultism, they need not pray. But the great Lord taught us to use the Lord's Prayer, and he himself prayed, which was an intense service to his fellow men. He was not, well, it is said that he said that if this cup may pass from me, let it pass. But he was accepting that perhaps it might not pass, and in fact knew, I think, that it would not pass. Usually the prayers were on behalf of others. So I think Christ shows his humanity in that request. I mean, how many of us want to go through torturous times? And for him, the Christ, it meant, I don't know, 5,000 years, 4,500 years in a role of world savior, world teacher, a divine psychologist. I'm reminded of how much people are longing for the teacher to appear. I'm reminded of Krishnamurti's experiences with the United Nations and how the aspirants there, at least aspirants in the matter of occult understanding, referred to him as the world teacher. Well, he was a great teacher, but the world teacher is the Christ. And he has a number of functions. I think it's really important to periodically, maybe once a year, reread the book, The Reappearance of the Christ, because it reminds us of probably our most important duty. The Tibetan seems to indicate that that was his most important impartation, to speak of the externalization and reappearance, and also the formation of the new group of world servers. So some thoughts on fire. Just prior to beginning the consideration of the matter at hand, I would like to point out to you a certain rather interesting fact. Most of the psychological phenomena of the earth are, as you will realize if you think clearly, under the control of the Deva Lord Agni, the great primary Lord of Fire, the ruler of our mental plane, and really, as I've tried to say, another name for the personality nature of our Solar Logos. Of course, Agni is Fohat, is Brahma, and in a way goes on and on. Applicable to many beings of which we can have no real knowledge. But for our purposes, as ruler of the mental plane, you know, the Rajadeva Lords rule various planes and maybe higher correspondences, or the higher correspondences to them rule the higher planes. Kashiti, the etheric physical, Varuna, the astral, Agni, the mental, Indra, the Buddhic, Brahma, the atmic, and Surya Vishnu, the monadic levels, and Shiva, the sea of fire, the logoic level. But of course, those beings necessarily have higher correspondences, and for Agni, one of the higher correspondences is to consider him as cosmic electricity, Fohat, Brahma, really the entire personality of the Solar Logos. So, but anyway, here, the Deva Lord Agni, the great primary Lord of Fire, that means there must be other Lords of Fire too, who are derivatives from him. Cosmic fire forms the background of our evolution. Electric fire, solar fire, fire by friction. The fire on the mental plane, its inner control and dominance, and its purifying asset, coupled to its refining effects, is the aim of the evolution of our threefold life. So fire is the great purifier, eliminating the dross, burning away what is not essential. I think on page 82 is it, of the rays and the initiation. Let's see if I can quickly find it. I think it's that page. Let's see. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's not, you know. Let's see, fire. And oh, there's quite a few. So let's see if I can, out of the cold into the fire, etc., etc. Let's see if I can bring this to the point. I was pretty sure I had it, but maybe not, you know. Ah, here it is. No, no, no. Is that? All right. It would be nice to find this because it's a very good definition. And yeah, here it is. And it is page 82. Well, it's just that this blue highlighter is maybe not as revelatory as it could be. Fire is the sum total of that which destroys form. You got that? Produces complete purity in that which is not itself. It produces complete purity in that which is not itself, generates the warmth which lies behind all growth and is vitality itself. I mean, the reason for all movement. And then we can see Agni, movement, Brahma, third aspect, one of the aspects of fire, generating the possibility of movement. Okay, so it is page 82 in the rays and the initiations. Okay. So cosmic fire forms the background of our evolution. The fire of the mental plane, its inner control and dominance, and its purifying asset coupled to its refining effect is the aim of the evolution of our threefold life. And we might say that this is the soul on the higher mental plane is the first aim of the evolution of our threefold life. When the inner fire of the mental plane and the latent fire of the lower vehicles emerge with the sacred fire of the triad, the work is completed and the man stands adept. Okay, well, this is relating to one of those stanzas of Xian in Cosmic Fire, maybe the very first one to be discussed. And three factors are mentioned here. The inner of the mental plane, and by that, I think we mean higher mental plane, and the fire latent in the lower vehicles, including the lower mental plane, merge with the sacred fire of the triad. So what we've got so far is personality, soul, and triad. Merge with the sacred fire of the triad, the work is completed, and the man stands adept. This relates to the atmic plane. The fifth plane corresponding to the fifth initiation, adeptship. The at-one-ment has been made, and the work of eons is completed. So the connection between adeptship, fifth initiation, and the atmic plane. Maybe not all things are mastered by the master upon the atmic plane, but he can certainly function there. And once he's able to polarize within the monad, he becomes no longer a man, technically speaking. They are no longer men as are the masters. We are told of those who are living the life monadic and polarized within the monad. All this is brought about through the cooperation of the Lord Agni. So obviously, obviously, beyond the mental plane, Agni in a higher expression. And the high devas of the mental plane working with the ruler of that plane and with the Raja Deva Lord of the second plane, who is Vishnu. Surya. Surya is an old name for the sun representing the second aspect of divinity, and Vishnu, the second great deity. So the higher Agni is involved here, and its expression also on the mental plane. But let's just say that the transfiguration initiation of a solar kind is adeptship. Fifth initiation is solar adeptship in that respect. Solar initiatory adeptship, and also the to be considered the first initiation in a Syrian line of initiations. So the work is laid out, and I wonder if I can find what I would be looking for relatively quickly. Burn, let's see. This should be a treatise on cosmic fire. And it should be burneth. Oh. Well, let's see. Stanzas of Jian in Cosmic Fire. Let's see if we can. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Of course, there it is. That was the rays, white magic. Burneth up the whole. And what DK is talking about here takes us to this particular stanza 1, page 11. The secret, let you see it, right? The secret of the fire lieth hid in the second letter of the sacred word. The mystery of life is concealed within the heart. When the lower point vibrates, when the sacred triangle glows, when the point, the middle center, and the apex connect and circulate the fire, when the threefold apex likewise burns, then the two triangles, the greater and the lesser, merge into one flame, which burneth up the whole. I think that I've analyzed this almost to death, and what it might mean in my commentaries, written commentaries on the Treatise on Cosmic Fire. But I think we can see pretty well that it relates to what we've just been studying over here. When the inner fire of the mental plane and the fire latent in the lower vehicles merge with the sacred fire of the triad, the work is completed and the man stands adept. By that time, of course, the causal body is destroyed and the debris is cleared by the time we have the fifth initiation, the initiation of revelation. Macrocosmic evolution proceeds in like manner to the microcosmic. The internal fires of the terrestrial globe, deep in the heart of our Earth sphere, will merge with the sacred fire of the sun at the end of the greater cycle, and the solar system will then have reached its apotheosis. So this would be the cosmic adeptship of our solar logos. Now, there is a possibility that only the fourth initiation, cosmically considered, may be taken by our solar logos in this fifth solar system or second major, but it is hoped and planned that the fifth initiation will be taken. And then in the sixth solar system, the monadic initiation will be taken. That's the next solar system. So he pretty well confirms that deep within the bowels of the earth, deep, 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 is fire. Internal fires of the terrestrial globe. And deep in the heart, now as a hint, I suppose, of our Earth sphere, will merge with the sacred fire of the sun and end at the end of the greater cycle. And so, you know, let's just say here that our Earth is very important in the fifth initiation of our solar logos, as our Earth is the base of spine center for the solar logos, and the base of spine center is the major, center involved in the initiation both of man and of the solar logos, and probably of our planetary logos as well. It's just a little difficult to tell the place of our Earth chain within the economy of our planetary scheme. Is it a heart center? I think it's maybe more likely to be, again, since it is the lowest of the chains in the way they are usually depicted, more likely to be the base of spine center, with every chain representing one of the major centers. There are 7. At least, you know, from, well, sometimes, you know, you could consider 10 major, and sometimes when you look at the externalized 7, you might say, well, 3 are always hidden. That's kind of Kabbalistic thinking. 3 higher, the correspondences to Keter, Chokhmah, and Bina, always hidden. So this mystery of the 10 and the 7 has to be solved with respect to the planetary scheme. I think Jeffrey Baborka, he was a scholar, theosophical scholar, and he has some ideas about that, about the number of chains there might be in a planetary scheme. And it wasn't just 7. And, if there are hidden schemes, rather hidden chains within the scheme, maybe those hidden chains have something to do with what's called the inner round, wherein a rapid form of development can be pursued. Little by little, says the Tibetan, as the eons slip away and the lesser cycles run their course. So, scheme cycles, chain cycles, and so forth. The greater cycle is, we might say, at least as a hypothesis, great cycle of the duration of a solar logos, especially in etheric physical form. As to what kind of cycles occur inwardly, well, we have those huge numbers that tell us about the yugas and the Mahayugas and the days of Brahma, the Kalpas and the Mahakalpa. The greater cycle is the Mahakalpa. So just go back to Treatise on Cosmic Fire, I think it's page 39, and it's footnote number 6. And there the calculations are given, which HPB tells us are authentic and are to be taken, it looks like, literally. Little by little, as the eons slip away and the lesser cycles run their course, fire will permeate the ethers and will be daily more recognizable and controlled, till eventually cosmic and terrestrial fire will be at one, the bodies of all material forms adapting themselves to the changing conditions, and the correspondence will be demonstrated. So this will, the vitalization of the ethers will occur, and our planet will become increasingly solarized, which means capable of the higher initiations, which are cosmic initiations for our planet. When this is realized, the phenomena of the Earth, such as, for instance, seismic disturbance, can be studied with great interest. So, maybe earthquakes have much to do with the influence of the greater on the lesser being our Earth. Later, when more is comprehended, the effects of such disturbances will be understood, and likewise their reactions on the sons of men. So it's not purposeless. And during the next 1,000 years, we're told that there will be many seismic disturbances. Apparently, it's a great transitional time. During the summer months, as the great cycle comes around in different quarters of the earth, the fire devas, the fire elementals, and those obscure entities, the Agni Chaitans of the internal furnaces, come into greater activity, relapsing as the sun moves further away into a less active condition. So we have what we can easily call let's see here, seasonal activation of the Agni Chaitans. And I think, okay, well, there's Agni Chaitans. Okay, we'll add that to the dictionary. You have here a correspondence between the fiery aspects of the earth economy in their relationship to the sun, similar to the watery aspect and their connection with the moon. I give you quite an occult hint here. Okay, the moon perhaps does not offer too much right now, but it does play upon the waters through the tides and maybe through other methods, quite possibly. Okay, I'll make that quite visible. You have here a correspondence between the fiery aspects of the earth economy and the sun, similar to the water and the moon. So let's just say sun, fire, moon, water, and probably Neptune at work. The moon is not so at work, but the moon veils Neptune, among other factors. And Neptune has a close connection with the sun and the solar fires, interestingly enough, and as with the waters. So Neptune under Neptune, fire and water come into relationship. I would like also to give you here a very brief, though occult fragment that ellipse may now be made public. If pondered on, it carries the student to a high plane and stimulates vibration. And yes, I do see that I didn't need to go looking in cosmic fire, because this occult fragment is the same. I'll just repeat it, we're talking about fire. I'll put it in red. And I will not The interpretation of this can go in many directions. I will not attempt to interpret it here. I've done that exhaustively in the commentary on cosmic fire. I'm trying to remember. Yes, I think I wrote this one out. Then maybe I spoke of it as well. The secret of the fire lies hid in the second letter of the sacred word, the U, and its relationship to the second aspect of divinity. Let's see, ABC. Second aspect, the mystery of life. And frequently when we're speaking of the second aspect, we use the word mystery, is concealed within the heart. And so if we go to the breaking down of the sacred word, the A, the AU, the AUM, and then the various combinations thereof, 4 additional combinations. The mystery of life is concealed within the heart. When that lower point vibrates, now does he mean the heart? When the sacred triangle glows, and so, the spiritual triad is a possibility here. I've given several possibilities of how to interpret this. So maybe if you're really interested, you can find that in the Cosmic Fire commentaries. When that lower point vibrates, when the sacred triangle glows, when the point, the middle center, let's look at that as the causal body perhaps, and the apex likewise burn. And when we speak of the apex, we perhaps mean the monad. The point is the heart, the middle center is the causal body, the sacred triangle is the spiritual triad. This is one way at least to interpret it. Then the 2 triangles, the greater and the lesser, merge into one flame, which burneth up the whole. And we could be speaking here of the destruction of the causal body, the egoic lotus. We could also, we could be involving the monad itself and all lesser factors which are extensions of the monad. Suffice it to say, there is liberation here through fire. And the heart of love, whoa, that's not a word, is it? The extensions of the monad involve all of the principles, all of the various permanent atoms and other points along the way, like the mental unit, which is not really a permanent atom, but a part of a permanent atom, at least, when combined with the monastic permanent atom, giving 7 worlds, or spirille, then 4 plus 3. So, we are dealing here with cosmic fire and with the fire of love. And maybe in my analysis earlier, the heart can be considered as a point when that lower point vibrates. So that's interesting because the heart itself gives us a connection with the Buddhic plane within the triad. The sacred triangle glows, and if we're talking about the wholeness, we have to include, of course, the spiritual triad and the sixth principle of love wisdom, which is the Buddhic principle. So this is about the second aspect of divinity. When that lower point vibrates, when the sacred triangle glows, we're not ready to burn up the whole until the triad is really active in the life of the individual through the building of the antakarana. When the point, and I assume he's referring back to that lower point, and that is what I might have left out in my earlier analysis. The middle center, which is the soul, and the apex, likewise burn. So we have a glowing sacred triangle and a burning below, the fiery dissipation of the personality and of the causal body, and the extent to which the monad is burning, well, we have to just defer on that. Then the two triangles, the greater and the lesser, merge into one flame which burneth up the whole. By the wholeness, we may mean, as I said, the extension of the monad on all of its planes. There is a, let's see if I can find this. There is a triangle here, two triangles, and perhaps these two are the ones that merge. From another point of view, there is a triangle below and a triad above. They can merge and burn up the causal vehicle. Now, there are different ways of destroying a causal vehicle, and the sixth method involves fire or self-immolation. Not all methods involve the fire in that direct manner. Yeah. So, as I say, there are just different ways of looking at that. It all depends on what we call the whole. Now, from the point of view of our normal human development, the whole can be considered to be the personality and the egoic lotus. But maybe it extends far beyond that, and everything sub-monadic is considered the whole. That would be a very late process of centralization within the monad at the sixth initiation. And then, the spiritual triad too could be considered to disappear. It might remain as the vestures of the Buddha remained, but on the other hand, maybe simply the monadic vehicle and the ability to project from that vehicle anything that is needed would be that which remained. So what is the whole? That's the question. Are we simply dealing with the fourth initiation or with the sixth initiation? And which triangles are we talking about to create this seal of Solomon? which then is also destroyed. One day the monadic vehicle is destroyed. So maybe, this is speculative, but maybe this particular mantra is applicable at some different levels. For instance, the level of gaining freedom from the causal body and the level of gaining freedom from the spiritual triad, and even the level of gaining freedom as a volatile essence from the monadic vehicle. So I'm just going to have to leave that in an unresolved condition, at least in my mind, and try to see which comes first. I think the destruction of the causal body under the infusion of buddhi, that's one of the causes of the disintegration, the great love energy under the you. That's one of the causes of the disintegration of the causal vehicle. And that is a wholeness which is burnt up. But other wholenesses are also burned up. Everything eventually sub-monadic is burnt up. We're told the Buddha left his vestures, preserved them somehow for the use of the Christ. Maybe not all Chohans leave their vestures. And, maybe this triangle in the realm of Brahma does not remain, but can be projected through Kriya Shakti and everything that is needed in regard to those high Brahmic planes, there are 5 of them, can be produced. So what may look like the simplest of the stanzas of Xian that are here included has a number of possible meanings. We do know that what we are aiming for and what we consider the wholeness of our present evolutionary equipment is the burning up of the personality through the atomic triangle, and the destruction, whether through burning or by whatever means, of the causal body, and liberation into the triad of all that is found within the causal body. And eventually there will be an uprising from the, what did I say, into the causal body, the liberation of what is in the causal body into the spiritual triad. So you are left without a causal body and without a personality, but you can generate those via the Maya Varupa from the spiritual triad. And eventually, everything within the triad, whether that involves the destruction or preservation of the triad, as in the case of the Buddha, all of that is lifted into the monad. And eventually, that monadic vehicle also must be destroyed here, yeah. And we are left within the sea of fire, and within one of the 3 triangles here found, the Father, the Son, or the Holy Spirit. So this is abstraction and synthesis we're talking about here. And the first this first fragment seems to carry some important hints about our liberation on several levels. There is liberation from the personality when we can focus within the causal body, but the causal body and the personality remain. Then there is liberation from the causal body and personality together, and we focus within the triad, as the masters do now. And then there is liberation from the triad as we focus within the monadic vehicle, the so-called Temple of Ezekiel. You know, he's the one that, maybe he was a great astrologer, I don't know. He saw the wheel way in the middle of the air, you know, as the spiritual, the song indicates, carrying a lot of occultism and esotericism with it. And then there is the liberation, liberation from the Temple of Ezekiel into the Sea of Fire and into one of three great circles or triangles representing the three subsidiary logoi to our solar logos, really. Because the solar logos is connected with that first plane. So we are either, in our liberated monadic form, we are either of the Father, of the Son, or of the Holy Ghost. It's my, I said I wasn't going to try to explain this, you know, given my own limitations here as to what I can conjecture, but I ended up giving a fair number of indications. So maybe I'm hoping that I was careful and systematic when I wrote the commentary, and maybe you can find several options there, but it's all about liberation. This first stanza of Xian, all about liberation. Okay. So now we're going to go into the physical body. It is our task now to deal briefly with the dangers that attend the practice of meditation as they manifest in the physical body. These dangers, like so much else in the logoic scheme, and is that an interesting idea, the word scheme? Maybe there are, you see, logoic schemes. Yeah, just as there would be logoic schemes compared to a cosmic logos, just as there are planetary logoic chains, or no, let's put it like this, schemes, planetary logoic schemes compared to a solar logos. So maybe the entire solar system is just one scheme. Okay. This could hint that the entire, or our entire is just one scheme of 7 or 10. You know, always the 7 and the 10. Whenever there's a 7, look for a 10. So, like so much else in the logoic scheme, assume a threefold nature, attacking 3 departments of the physical body, and etc. All right, well, I'm sorry. This is a new subject, or at least it's focusing particularly on the physical body, and the brain is involved here, the nervous system, and the sex organs. Okay. And it's quite lengthy. So I think the thing to do in this program 26 is to call it a day here, or if not a day, at least let's just say up to page 102 or 101. So wherever we began, let's go back here. And it is a bit back here, isn't it? Watch and pray. This was part of our work today. And okay, so 98 to basically 101 and 102. We're there at the borderland. And we'll move this down to where we stopped, with the hope that, you know, I can always find where I'm looking, and just began to read this. So we'll take it up again. This has been program number 26, and the date has been the 26th of August. I wonder how long that'll go on. And we went from 98 to 101, 102, and we'll start with program 27, and we'll go from 101, 102 to whatever. I'm going to just leave that be for the moment, and since I don't know when I'll start, hopefully tonight again, but we'll see. Okay, friends, you have to admit, this is just, think of the quality of this information. Where would you get such trustworthy, esoteric information, which is so very relevant to our development along the path, whether of aspiration, discipleship, or initiation? Necessary, relevant information and wise counsel about how to use that information. Where would you find it? So we have to be so grateful that the Tibetan has decided to release this, of course, with the permission of his master and the Christ and Sanat Kumara, the whole chain of command there, with permission to release this for the edification of the more modern Aryan in consciousness disciple. We're not talking about the Aryan physical race or anything like that that was used by the forces of darkness. We're talking about a mental consciousness verging upon soul consciousness. So for the people who were ready for that type of inquiry, he has come forward. And the more you go with it, the deeper it seems to get. Or maybe it's just that you recognize how deep it always was, and what a privilege it is to be able to meditate, study, and apply in service, albeit to a small extent, you know, but meditate, study, and apply in service what has been given, and how we are guided along the path, and the dangers are made evident to us. So in undertaking what is dangerous and difficult, we do not find ourselves in some way destroyed or retarded or inhibited or held back through our own indiscretion. So basically what I'm just saying is that given our normal thoughts about living a normal life in our rather decaying Piscean society, we would not come into these thoughts, but we have come to these thoughts, and we just have to have a deepening appreciation of what they potentially can do for us, and therefore for our assisting service in the manifestation of the divine plan as we can manifest it at our particular level. We don't expect to be able to do what the externalized masters can do, certainly not what the Christ will do, but we can be ever so much more helpful when we are properly informed and we are becoming properly informed. And that is a great joy, and should inspire in us, the deeper we go, more and more authentic gratitude and the wish to distribute to those who are ready and may not even know that it exists, may not even know they're ready for that next step. Distribute this teaching. Teach and spread the ageless wisdom wherever you can find response, the proper response, of course. That's what the Tibetan is committed to do, and that's what we as his students can do in our own smaller spheres. And it is a needed thing to do. It's an honorable thing to do. It's a necessary thing to do. Okay, friends, lots of love and many blessings. I'll go on when I can. And meanwhile, there's a lot to think about, a lot to study. When you settle into meditation, just make sure it's not superficial. Just wait attentively, watchfully, until the new point of tension really appears and the revelations of that higher point of tension become your own. You recognize them, they are revealed to you, you realize what they are. So I find, as I go on in meditation, that if I just gloss over something, well, it's just superficial absorption. But if I really wait and attend, I really watch, there's something new, some portion of a veil lifts and more is seen, more is understood. So make sure you penetrate in that way. And then the revelation, the realization, which is the desired end of this teaching, or a desired factor, let's say, will appear. And then we will own those things that have appeared to us, and we will be able to impart them in a way that is proportionate to the consciousness of our interlocutor, as Master Moria is fond of saying, to speak proportionally or proportionately to the one with whom you are engaged in conversation about these spiritual matters. Okay, we'll be back, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.